Broadcasting live from Lothal. Good morning, Lothal. It's the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to Good Morning Lothal, the Unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast. I'm Pete Salas, along with
Rolando Zamora.
How we doing, Rolly?
Dude, I'm good. I'm kind of sore. I've been doing some personal training at the gym. Yeah, it's been good. I've been back at the gym for maybe a couple months now, but about a month in, I got approached by a trainer and I was like, you know what? Let's add this. I think it's exactly the motivation I need to keep going. So it's good, dude. It's like, I feel like I'm back. I'm not back at boot camp. I feel like I'm in a boot camp PE type thing because we're doing endurance training to start, but I can really feel the results and they're kicking in. So I've been excited about that.
Had you ever used a personal trainer before?
My buddy Andy, who's the guy that I own the shop.
Okay.
I hesitate to say / own the shop because it's really his and his wife's, and I just kind of bought into a portion of it. But yeah, he's the guy that kind of initially trained me. I think when we first met, I had already let myself go. But I can definitely say that muscle memory is a thing because it's not as hard. It's hard, don't get me wrong, but when you've done it once, it's not as hard to get it back, and the body remembers that also. It's hard to get the rhythm, the motivation, and I feel like I've gotten that back. So good. Yeah, it's been good for me.
Yeah, I've never worked with a personal trainer before. I mean, I've had gym memberships in the past. They haven't lasted, obviously, but I mean, I am at peak physical condition at the moment. No, that's not true at all.
You're too harsh on yourself.
But ironically, I actually started exercising again recently, the last 3 weeks, and I've been doing it every single morning, and that is all thanks to a friend of ours named J Pops, who he got rid of his elliptical machine, and I thought I was going to help him sell it to somebody else because I knew somebody who was talking about it, and turns out once I mentioned it to my wife, she's like, take it. So I got his elliptical, and I've been using it every single day for the past 3 weeks, every morning. I mean, I'm starting out light because I'm completely out of shape, totally. I mean, I guess to be out of shape means that I was in shape at one point, and I don't think I have ever truly been in shape, but I'm definitely working on my cardio and, just regular health maintenance reasons. So I'm proud of myself that I've done it every single day.
You should be. I'm proud of you too, because I would say it really takes about a month, 3 to 4 weeks to really catch a rhythm and a routine. And if you're telling me you've done it for 3 weeks already, you're basically, if you didn't already break not break, but get into the ritual of it now just being routine, you don't even think about it, you're right there, man. So stick with it. You're gonna see it pay off, and I'm sure you're already feeling it and seeing it.
I am. I feel myself with more energy, especially in the mornings. However, you did mention that I went to Houston, and unfortunately I did not.
You didn't go?
I did not. No. I did not work out while I was in Houston. Even though the hotel had a weight room, and I should have. I had every reason to do it, but I got up early every morning, and instead of the weight room, I went down to the continental breakfast. So,
hey, but were you on officially vacation, or were you doing something, working?
No, I was on vacation. So
if you're on vacation, you don't work out.
Doesn't. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Only the crazies do that.
Well, then Rolly said it was okay, so that's all good. So turning it back over to the world of Star Wars, today's episode that we're talking about is Season 2, Episode 6. It's called Brothers of the Broken Horn. But before we get to talking about today's episode, I'd like to welcome everybody back and ask everyone to please like, share, subscribe, and rate. So if you have not done that yet, please consider doing that and give your boys a little bit of a boost. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, Rolly, what's happening around the galaxy?
Let's see what's happening this week in Star Wars.
Okay, so we got a pretty quiet week this week in the galaxy, but nonetheless, like we always do, we are celebrating some birthdays from a lot of our Star Wars celebrities. So let's go down that list to kick this show off. First and foremost, Paul Rubens, August 27th, who most people will know as Pee Wee Herman. I think we mentioned him in our first season of Rebels. He voiced RX-24 in Star Wars Rebels. He was basically that pilot droid in those public transports. I know I've mentioned to the Disney World, the Disney fanatics who are familiar with Star Tours, that's the Captain Rex droid, except in Rebels, it's actually RX-24. And he's voiced by none other than Pee Wee Herman.
Right.
So that's a cool little... I honestly don't know how he ended up in that role, but I think it's really awesome.
I mean, I would say that's just Dave Filoni being of our age bracket, being an 80s kid, basically, who, was a fan of Pee Wee Herman's and was like, I've got the perfect role for him. So just...
There you go.
It's probably just as simple as that.
Next on our list, we have Ben Diskin, August 25th. He voices AZ3. You fans out there who are familiar with Bad Batch, that's Omega's droid from the Bad Batch, but he did also, if you guys remember, come out initially in Clone Wars. So I know when I looked that up, he kind of just he doesn't steal the spotlight in Bad Batch, but he kind of becomes a bigger point of emphasis in Bad Batch. So I had to look up the Clone Wars factoid, and I'm like, you know what, I actually need to go back and revisit those episodes where he comes out. It's a really cool little droid who ends up discovering kind of like I don't want to say his own path, but he does like break out of his shell of like, I'm more than just a droid, I serve a bigger purpose. And
right.
He pairs really well with Omega in the Bad Batch. I know me and Peter are both really, really big fans of that show. Looking forward to season 2, by the way.
I need to revisit it also. And I remember, and I can't remember who I thought it was, but when I first saw him on Bad Batch, I thought that I recognized his voice as like another actor, not necessarily a voice actor, but an actual TV actor. And come to find out it was not him. And I'm struggling to remember who I thought it was, but I'll circle back to that.
Speaking of which, I didn't put this on our outline, but there's been this big old thing on TikTok lately where somebody managed to somehow, as I guess they were watching a Buffalo Wild Wings commercial, and apparently Ezra, who's voiced by Taylor Gray, is actually the voice on there. So I was just laughing because I was reading the comments.
Oh, really?
On there, because all these Star Wars fans are real clever, and they're like, man, so Ezra's been working at Buffalo's this whole time, ever since the show ended. Oh. It's just a factoid. Since we're talking about voice actors, I couldn't stop laughing. If you guys haven't seen that video, look it up. It's pretty funny. So next on our list, we have Kenny Baker, born August 24th. He plays R2-D2 in the original trilogy. And then next on our list, we have, this is a new one. We haven't seen her role yet, but I want to mention her nonetheless because she is specific to Rebels in a certain way. Natasha Liu Bordizzo, August 25th. She is going to be playing Sabine Wren in the upcoming Ahsoka live action series. I was kind of torn on this one, Pete, because I'm such a big fan of Tia Sircar, who we've talked about. She's the original voice of Sabine in Rebels, but the more like I see pictures of this girl, I know she's popular for some Netflix series that I have not seen. But if you look at some of the angles on the pictures of her face, she looks exactly like Sabine, which is kind of crazy. But I in that aspect, I have to see how she actually plays the role, right? But in that regard, I would say that the casting looks like it's going to be spot on for Sabine as far as looks are concerned. So looking forward to seeing that one.
No, I mean both actresses. I mean, I'm sure I have not seen. I have not seen this. What was her name again? Natasha. I have not seen Natasha Liu Bordizzo in anything. I don't really watch anything other than Star Wars, to be honest with you. But she's a beautiful girl, so I'm pretty sure that she fits the perfect mold of exactly what they're looking for a live action Sabine. And it's not to take anything away from Tia Sircar, like you were saying. Like she is Sabine for all intents and purposes, as far as the voice and whatnot, and she also is an attractive girl, so I could have gone both ways. But I think visually, I guess Sabine has more of like a Asian American kind of a visually face, right? Like she's got an Asian. Yeah,
I think that I would say certain characteristics of the contours on her face give that vibe, and I think that's basically why I'm saying that this new actress looks like her. I know I didn't really ever see it in that aspect, since I kind of associated like Sabine had a darker skin, or has a darker skin rather. So when I knew that it was Tia Shakar voicing her, I was like, okay, I can see that, right? It seems like her and Ezra kind of have like that Middle Eastern type color.
Yes.
So I figured both, it kind of made sense. And if they casted Tia Shakar for the live action series, I thought that was going to be really awesome. But, that's not what happened. But I can't discredit, Natasha Bordizzo until I see her in the role. So I'm going to not give my opinion on that until I see it, because for all we know, she's going to kill it. And if Dave Filoni's had any, input on casting her, like, I really do trust the guy. So
for sure.
And then last but not least, to make up for last week's Jar Jar joke, I specifically set this guy last on the birthday list because he is Pete's real favorite, not Jar Jar. And that is none other than Ray Park, August 23rd. And I don't have to tell you guys, but he plays none other than Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace.
Yep. Amazing portrayal for very little screen time.
Yeah, and I know you've met him at a con, but I follow all these people on social media, and this guy, he's always posting the fan stuff, reposting, sharing, and it just seems like every con, every fan interaction that this guy has, he's just like totally in love with it. And
he is.
Yeah.
It just comes through. I liken him to the
Jason David Frank,
green/white Power Ranger. Exactly. Yep. Like he lives to be the Power Ranger at the con, so it's perfect. Like he lives the gimmick, I guess, as we're gonna put it in wrestling vernacular. He lives his gimmick. So
it's an awesome gimmick at that, right? If I got to play Darth Maul, then I certainly would probably just refer to myself as Darth Maul going forward for the rest of my life.
Why not?
All right, so that wraps up our birthdays today. So just kind of moving on to our next segment. As you guys know, Rogue One came out in the IMAX this weekend. I know Pete saw it. I didn't get a chance to see it, but I'm going to rewatch it at home like I always do. So, not to undermine the experience, but Pete, how did you end up enjoying it? Seeing it in IMAX?
Freaking loved it, dude. Like I said, I did see it in theaters when it first came out, but I did not get to see it in IMAX, so I've made up for it, 5-6 years later, whatever it is. Going in, I obviously I'd seen it several times since then, but I truly, like, if it was possible for me to like flush my mind of everything so that I could watch it fresh, I kind of wanted to do that. So I was more looking, like, how do I say this? Like, I've seen the characters in the foreground multiple times, so now I was just kind of paying attention to everything else. I didn't necessarily need to focus on what the dialogue was 100% to like get the story as if it was the first time. So I was just kind of looking at other things and picking up stuff from the past. The one thing that I did go in with this that was different from the very first time that I saw it was that I had not watched Rebels at the time. So I knew that there were some Rebels Easter eggs, and
that's what I was going to ask you.
Like so I was purposely looking for it on the big screen to make it even, easier to find. So the first two that I think everybody knows that has ever looked this up is there are cameos by two very important pieces of metal from the Rebels universe, and one of them being the ghost ship. I believe it's in two scenes, and I noticed both of them.
Yes.
It's like landed, it's parked basically when they did like this wide aerial shot of the base. And when they all show up at the end, when the Alliance shows up to help out, it's one of the ones that comes in from hyperspace. And it's just a quick flash, but you recognize the ass of that thing anyway. It's got a very prominent looking rear end on that. So that was pretty cool. Also, Chop makes a cameo, very brief cameo, also on the Rebel base when they're setting up to go help or to tell Mon Mothma to, give her the information of what's happening. You can see him in the background scurrying by.
Yeah, he just like casually strolls by, right?
Right, and it's him because he's got that front wheel that kind of looks like a shopping cart wheel.
Yeah. I remember when I saw it again after the Rebels watch, and I was just like, what, this happened on the screen and I didn't even know. I was just like totally like blown away. Did you catch the part where they called Hera on the intercom?
That was the one thing is also in that it all happens at the base. Obviously someone over the PA system says General Syndulla to the blah 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 whatever, like they're summoning her somewhere. Now I never saw that one before. That one I picked up without even knowing to look for it, so that was kind of cool. Was proud of myself
Nice.
on that one. The other one that I picked up was a word that we didn't learn until we watched Rebels, which was Karabast. And one of the characters screams it at the end. It is the scene where the AT-ATs come, the AT-ATs come through the jungle, and he turns and he sees it, and he turns back at the camera and he screams, "Karabast! AT-ATs!" Like he's announcing to let him know that the AT-ATs have arrived. And he says, the infamous word that Zeb made popular, which is, I guess, a bad word, whatever. That was cool. Those were a couple that I noticed that, I guess in that sense, I saw it with a fresh set of eyes because I had not watched Rebels since I watched it the first time. So that was pretty cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it in IMAX, and I was glad to have seen it. I'm not so glad that you didn't get to go see it. So unfortunately,
yeah, it's just busy weekend. It was ended up being a really good weekend, but I can't really say I have an excuse on that one.
Well, I saw that your store had some sort of a pop-up event or something. Did that happen?
No, what actually ended up happening was we have like I mentioned before on the show, we have a sneaker and collectible aspect of our shop. So my buddies were at a sneaker convention on Saturday, so I actually had to man the store by myself on Saturday. But it was kind of like I was a little bit overwhelmed, but it ended up working out really well, so can't really complain. So my no excuse is speaking for Sunday, because we usually record on Sunday, guys, but today we're recording on Monday because Pete was out of town. So I literally had no excuse. I just did not feel like making the drive to the IMAX to watch it.
It's all right.
I feel like I'm guilty, and everybody's being revealed to this, of not doing a lot of Star Wars homework. But guys, I put together like an insane outline every single week for this show. I promise you, I do the homework that counts.
Yeah, it sure does. He keeps the engine running here, so that's good.
All right. So speaking of Chopper, when are we not talking about Chopper, right? But I had something really cool happen this week that I wanted to give some shout outs to. So a friend of mine who I've known since high school, we kind of became friends a little bit, I would say in the past 5 years, which ended up being really strange because she doesn't live here. But I always knew she was a huge Star Wars fan, so we would talk Star Wars. I want to give a special shout out to Keisha and Jared. They actually sent out their wedding invitations this past week, and I received mine. And it just so happens that she knew to put, or she had Star Wars stamps that she was sending out with her wedding invitations, and she knew to put Chopper as one of the stamps on the envelope. Cool. So I just want to give a special shout out to Keisha for that, making the wedding invitation extra special. And yes, I will be there.
Awesome. Mazel tov.
And then I also want to give a few more special shout outs to 3 of my other friends, Tanya, Danny, and Eddie, who are avid listeners to our podcast. Without me asking, they also did go see Rogue One in IMAX this weekend. And Tanya and Danny live 10 hours away in Fort Worth. And she texted me that night saying, we got an extra Andor poster that they handed out at the showing. One of them's for you. And then my friend Eddie saw it the next day, and he was like, "Hey, I saved you a poster. So if you need a poster, awesome. Pete,
I do. I didn't get a poster. My IMAX wasn't giving away posters up there in Houston, so that sucks.
Oh, that's crummy. Well, then there you go. I got one for you.
Awesome. Thank you to your friends also for sharing the wealth. Okay, so once again, thank you guys for your support in any way possible. So I guess this is a good time as any to also say any comments that you might want to drop, comments, suggestions, shout outs, anything. Please, you know where to find us on social media. And so I guess moving on, Rolly, give us a synopsis of this week's episode.
Okay, guys. So in this week's episode, when Ezra answers a distress signal from the broken horn, the young Jedi finds someone unexpectedly waiting, the legendary pirate Hondo Ohnaka. But is he a friend or a foe? Hondo.
I honestly fell in love with this character during the Clone Wars. I remember going to you and saying, "Hey man, I know that all I buy are Sith pops, but I really want a Hondo pop." And you're like, "You know what, man? Go ahead and buy the Hondo pop." So
was this after Clone Wars or Rebels though?
Well, where is he more prominent? Where did I fall in love with him? I guess it was Rebels then, right?
I only say that because it's been a while. I've been rewatching Clone Wars lately, actually, guys. So I am doing homework. I promise you. I'm just watching other stuff. The reason I say that is because he's kind of a hard ass in Clone Wars. He's like a true pirate. I don't remember the comedic element that he brings 150% to the table in Rebels. So for me, like, I dug the character in Clone Wars, but I absolutely fell in love with him when he comes back in Rebels, starting with this episode. So that's why I asked that.
I guess it's because that I watched Clone Wars first, so that was the first thing that I finished or got through, and then I went back to watch Rebels. So seeing him here, I guess I saw him in the wrong order. No, because Rebels came out after Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, if you ended up liking the guy in the way he was in Clone Wars, because I don't remember him being, you know, funny in Clone Wars. I just remember him being like a pirate through and through, like always just, you know, out to like steal, lie, cheat, and all that. But in this one, he's like doing all the same thing, except he's now like a crazy old man, like a super funny one.
Well, now you've got me thinking. But either way, point is that I really dug the character, and I was happy to see him back in Rebels. So this whole episode basically is built around the storyline of the characters running into Hondo. So it starts off with Ezra. He's having some blaster training with Rex, and he's interrupted by Kanan, who tells Ezra that it's time for his Jedi training. And this is a little back and forth that they had, which is Rex tells him, aim, then fire. And Ezra says, Rex, I bet sometimes even you miss. And Kanan says, speaking of, you're missing Jedi training, which is now, remember? But with a little bit of an attitude, because it's once again, Kanan is always going to be a little off-put by Rex's, you know, involvement in anything having to do with his family. And Ezra says, yeah, you know, I can't be in two places at once. And Rex says, as a soldier, you're going to have to learn to prioritize. And Kanan says, well, he's not a soldier, he's a Jedi. And Ezra says, yeah, what if I don't want to be either? And Kanan says, what's that supposed to mean? And that's when Sabine interrupts and says, hey, practice squad, Hera called a meeting, attendance is mandatory. So right then and there, by that little interaction where Ezra kind of talks back and says, what if I don't want to be either? It's kind of, we see that Ezra's he's just kind of a little tired and bored with his lot in life, that, you know, he's being torn between Jedi training and being part of this growing Rebel Alliance, and now he's like being trained by this ex-soldier, and it just kind of feels like he's being pulled in different directions, and he's a little burnt out, I guess, for lack of a better term. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree on that one. He's not going through the motions, so to say, but he feels like he's given this schedule, I guess, that he doesn't really feel up for sticking to. I think he was cool with Kanan being around. I'm not saying he's favoring Kanan, but now Rex is adding a lot more to his plate, and that has everything to do with Ahsoka, you know, recommending Rex to the Phoenix Squadron, because they do need the support. And this band of rebels, they do ultimately need, you know, military training to some extent. They don't have the experience of both the Jedi and the clones anymore. It's think of it like volunteers, so to say.
So once they get into the, you know, the main meeting area of the Ghost, Hera plays a message from Commander Sato on the comms, and he's asking the team to help the planet Rin with their energy crisis. And the team plans to look for generators on Garel's local black market to help out. However, Hera orders Ezra to stay behind and work on the Phantom, as she had already directed him twice to do. Ezra argues that his practice interrupted his duty, but Hera does not accept that excuse. So once again, more of the mother-son role that Hera and Ezra have.
So as Ezra and Chopper work on the Phantom, like they were basically assigned to do by Hera, they proceed to receive a distress signal from a ship called the Broken Horn. And Ezra immediately recognizes this as Vizago's ship. I think he posed the question, like you always do at the end of our last show, like, I'm not sure what the Broken Horn means.
Right.
And as soon as we got to this part and Ezra says that it's Vizago's ship, I immediately now knew why it was called the Broken Horn, because Vizago is missing a horn. He has one horn that's broken.
You know what's funny is, like, I literally just got that as you read that. Like, like it just happened just seconds before you said that. I literally put those two together, that's why it's called the Broken Horn. Oh my god, I'm stupid. Okay.
Yeah, but I also knew we were walking into a Hondo episode. I just did not remember that it had Vizago involved with it the way that it does.
Right.
So it totally brain farted on that one also for me. So as soon as Ezra recognizes that it's Vizago's ship, he remembers that he still owes Vizago a favor, as we found out a few episodes back when Vizago actually gave Ezra information to rescue Kanan, but also told him, I'm going to need a favor from you later. A favor from a Jedi is basically a done deal. Like, whatever he needs is going to happen. So because of this, Ezra decides to answer the distress call, as he both does not want to do his chores that he was just assigned to do by Hera, but also to potentially square off this deal that we're just talking about. So Ezra and Chopper take off on the Phantom, which they're supposed to be working on. Chopper kind of gives him a little bit of crap because he basically tells Ezra, do you even know how to fly? And Ezra's like, yeah, I got this. So somehow they manage, right? They get to the Broken Horn and they board it. But when they get on there, they immediately notice that the ship appears abandoned. It's just kind of floating in space. The engines are off. So it just seems like a really sketchy setup. And Ezra begins to suspect that something's wrong with Vizago because he's also not answering his comms. So as they begin to search the ship, Chopper gets separated from Ezra, and Chopper, as he's like finding a way to get back to Ezra, he actually discovers power generators, and that is exactly what the Ghost Crew was just assigned to look for from Commander Sato. So right away, you kind of know where the episode's gonna go. Like now, they have a means to acquire these power generators, even though they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. Right. So Chopper discovers the generators. However, Ezra, as he's looking through the ship for Vizago, he ends up discovering Hondo Ohnaka. And Hondo is working on the ship in the cockpit because clearly something's wrong with the ship, as Ezra and Chopper has suspected. So he gets out from his little crevice where he's working on the wiring and all that, and he proceeds to introduce himself as the proud owner of this fine but currently inoperative vessel. So then we have some dialogue between Ezra and Hondo, and Ezra says, "Where's Vizago? This is his ship." And Hondo responds, you know Vizago? Well, then we have a mutual friend. Yes, it was his ship, but we were enjoying a friendly game of sabacc, and well, now it's my ship. And I noted that this is kind of like a callback to Solo, the way Lando loses his ship to Han Solo, and vice versa. So Ezra responds, "Vizago bet his ship," and Hondo goes, right after he bet his droids, which are now also mine. "You know about me, but what about you?" And Ezra proceeds to introduce himself as Lando Calrissian, as he typically always chooses, the most, I don't want to say the most random character in the Star Wars universe, but I mean, if you guys remember, this guy, first person he ever introduced himself was as Jabba the Hutt, who's clearly not Jabba the Hutt. And then here it's like he's introducing himself as Lando. He's clearly not Lando. It can't be like a similar character. It's just like somebody totally different. And that's something that I like absolutely love about Ezra. But this is funny in particular because it's a little bit more strategic, because Lando's a smuggler, Hondo's a pirate / smuggler. So it kind of leads to some interesting interaction, later in this episode, because he chose Lando's name. So Hondo responds, "Lando. So at last, I meet the semi-famous Lando Calrissian, a tad younger than I pictured, but to be so young and flying to my rescue proves that you must be the scoundrel I have heard of." So just to kind of give you guys a heads up, like I was mentioning to Pete, Hondo in Clone Wars, he's a bit of a hard ass. When you first meet him, it's like, this is a pirate. He's real scummy. He's really awesome, right? He's really cool because he's got that cool villainous vibe. Yeah. But right off the bat, when he introduces himself in this segment, you can tell this is a different Hondo. He looks visually significantly older, and he gives off this goofy vibe. Like, yes, he's still a pirate, but he's kind of like a semi-retired, I'm just going to do the best I can and be okay with that pirate, and I'm going to use my not my wits, but like my charisma, I guess, to be a better pirate. So this is the beginning of a whole lot of ridiculousness. That's what this episode entails. We're gonna go heavy dialogue in this because basically the majority of this episode is Hondo being an idiot. Just to kind of give you guys, summarize it for you guys. As they're talking, an Imperial light cruiser shows up as Hondo continues to tell Ezra about his journeys, and Ezra immediately gets to work on repairing the hyperdrive on the Broken Horn as Hondo distracts the Empire on the comms. Ezra is fortunately able to fix the hyperdrive as Chopper enters the cockpit and immediately sends the Broken Horn into hyperspace. So while they're in hyperspace, Hondo begins to explain to Ezra how they would make a really good team and that he could use him for a job. we have some more dialogue between Hondo and Ezra, and Hondo says, I'm an old man. I just need help pushing a few crates. And Ezra goes, crates of what? So as soon as Ezra says this, some crates show up on a hologram that Hondo, opens up. Mm-hmm. And Ezra goes, whoa, power generators. That's what you're smuggling? These are pretty hard to get these days, old man. Expensive too. And Hondo goes, you're right, which is why we will sell them at a fair markup, 500%. And Ezra goes, okay, I'll help you. You give me my cut in power generators, 3 crates. And Hondo responds, all right, 2 crates and you have a deal. Ezra responds, 2, and we split the profits on the 3rd. Hondo laughs and proceeds to say, deal. The way you strike a bargain, you remind me of a great pirate I know, me. So as Hondo is saying this, Ezra proceeds to steal the droid controller that Hondo has attached to his waist as he is not looking, and hands it over to Chop. And he basically tells Chop, this guy's kind of a bit scummy. I don't trust him. He's a pirate. So go ahead and hold on to this. We might need it. So these are this is kind of the remote control for a bunch of powered down droids that I'm guessing originally belonged to Vizago, because Vizago specifically mentions that in the Sabak game that he had with him. So definitely it's some kind of defense system that these droids have, and whoever has that controller controls the droids. So after this interaction, the Broken Horn heads to an unknown planet to meet with the buyer of the generators that Vizago originally had lined up. And we soon immediately learn that the buyer is As Morgan, who is expecting Vizago and not Hondo. And if you guys remember, As Morgan was the pirate that in Lando's episode, he had a deal with, where he actually sold Hera
right,
in exchange for that. I forget the name of that pig, but it's like a mining pig, so to say. Yeah, a puffer pig. Yeah, so that's the same As Morgan that we now see here, causing, more chaos, as this guy is a true, villainous pirate in Rebels, as opposed to, kind of the good side. And I guess a good pirate, I don't even know if that's if that's a thing, but if there is such a thing as a good pirate, you can call Vizago and Hondo that in Rebels. Right. So Hondo proceeds to have interaction with As Morgan as he meets up with him, and Hondo tells him, Vizago is indisposed, so to speak, granting me the privilege of conducting business with you, O legendary one. Hondo Onaka at your service. And As Morgan responds, is this a joke? I don't deal with washed up old relics. And Hondo cleverly responds, come now, let's leave your wife out of this. There is no need for such impropriety among thieves. I am certain we can reach an accord. And As Morgan responds, I'm certain we can, at which point the troopers he has with him immediately point their guns to both Hondo and Ezra. So Ezra, in response to this, proceeds to send a distress signal to Chopper to come and help, as Morgan prepares to eliminate Hondo and Ezra by launching them into space, which is kind of harsh. It was kind of got a little bit dark there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're basically set up in like a docking bay setup, and I don't know why this docking bay has a platform that basically launches people out into space. I'm sure it's meant to launch like waste or crates, which is littering. I don't even know why. Again, this is a thing, but there's some kind of setup here, and yeah, this guy's threatening to launch them right into outer space. So then after this, we have even more interaction from Hondo and As Morgan, and Hondo says, As Morgan, take the fruits of our labor if you must. That I understand, but this, is it necessary? And As Morgan says, oh yes, you see, the Rain clan has a nice bounty on your head. I'll collect on these generators and make an additional profit from your death. And Hondo responds, your business plan is quite impressive. And As Morgan, looking at Ezra at this point, says, who is this? I know you from Calrissian's farm on Lothal. And Hondo responds, well, of course you know him. This is my longtime friend, Lando Calrissian. And As Morgan goes, what? No, he's not Calrissian. And Hondo looks at Ezra and goes, you lied to me? I knew I liked you. Dude, it's just like, this is why I fell in love with Hondo, by the way. Just speaking of, the action figure comment you made earlier.
Right.
And I was going to say another thing I wanted to mention about Hondo. That con, this is something I regret. That con I went to, where I met Ashley Eckstein and D. Bradley Baker. Jim Cummings voices Hondo, and his booth was right in between them.
Yeah,
and I did not get his autograph. So I was like, I felt really bad because I do really like Hondo a lot. But my thing is, I'm very picky about the autographs I get, like what items I get signed. So there wasn't like I was working on a Clone Wars poster and he wasn't on there, and I'm like, I could get him to sign it, but I kind of have a thing where if the character's not on the poster, I don't really want them signing it. But I was fortunate because since I was waiting for D. Bradley Baker, Jim Cummings' booth was so close that I saw him interacting with, some of the fans going up to him, and sure enough, he was doing the Hondo voice right there in front of me, which was really awesome.
Right. I mean, and his career goes back to like the late 70s, maybe early 80s or something like that. I'm pretty sure. Like, he's also the voice of Tigger or Winnie the Pooh or both. One of those
probably
two.
Both. I remember him and this is just I don't know his full repertoire, but I know a lot of people were getting Winnie the Pooh stuff signed, so yeah. I know for sure he voices him. And now that I think of that "oh bother" line, you can kind of hear his voice in it. But you might be right on the Tigger thing also. I
think he does both, and if I'm not mistaken, it's very similar to Hondo's voice. I think he kind of matched the same pitch. He's also Pete from the Goofy movie, from Goofy's neighbor, the Pete, the other dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if you listen to Pete and you listen to Hondo, it's basically the same voice too.
I guess that's another rewatch.
A little bit of an accent. A little bit of an accent. That's it. So anyway, we went off. But I love voice actors, so anytime I get a chance to shine a light on them and praise them a little bit, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, same. I know my thing in cons has usually always been like the actor, but there recently before the pandemic, I really got into the voice acting, so it's been kind of a new discovery for me, and I'm just loving it. I totally get how it's a way more exciting experience than, in my opinion, a way more exciting experience than meeting the actual live action actors. So getting back to the show, as we mentioned, Hondo and Ezra are captured at the moment by Az Morgan. Ezra already sent a distress call to Chopper, and sure enough, Chopper shows up and he enters the room, guns a-blazing, literally, and proceeds to distract Az Morgan and his goons as Ezra and Hondo break free and join the fight. And this is a really cool scene because they show Chopper, I think this is the first time where he's done it, where he actually arms his two little arms with two blasters, and he just goes on his front wheel, and just kind of flies all over the room shooting the blasters.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about him, but he's there for you when it counts.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any droid armed like that in any Star Wars meeting. I think I always feel bad for never remembering the droids' names from Solo and Rogue One, but I think the Rogue One droid does arm himself at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but nowhere near as cool as Chopper does it in this episode. So as the fight goes on, Az Morgan does manage to escape, but not before losing his coin to Hondo, who is nearly launched into space. So when Hondo's, being launched into space, Ezra proceeds to use the Force to pull Hondo back onto the docking bay, and Hondo immediately notices that he's using the Force to do so. So once Hondo is safely back on the landing platform, he tells Ezra, my friend, you may not be Calrissian, but I know one thing you are a Jedi. Why didn't you tell me you were a Jedi? I'm an old Jedi sympathizer. I know. I wouldn't believe me either, but one of my best friends was a Jedi. I'm pretty sure we were friends. And Ezra responds, well, I'm not really a Jedi yet. And Hondo tells him, well, then be a pirate Jedi. We will make an excellent team. But first, tell me what your real name is. And Ezra goes, Ezra Bridger. And Hondo responds, thank you, Ezra Bridger. So now that everybody's safe, as Morgan's out of the picture, Ezra and Hondo and Chopper, of course, get back to the Broken Horn, and we have even more conversation after that. And Hondo looks at Ezra and says, "Well, you must have many responsibilities, yes?" referring to his status as a Jedi. And Ezra responds, "Yeah, too many at the moment." And Hondo says, well, then join my crew and I will split it right down the middle, 50-40. You won't get a better deal than that, especially from me. And Ezra goes, wait, that's only 90%. What about the other 10? And Hondo responds, oh, you want me to spend that on expenses? Trust me. So Ezra counter offers it and says, okay, well, how about 0% for me? I want the generators, all of them. And Hondo goes, you have a deal, partner. Ah, this makes me happy. You get the generators and I get you for my crew. It is good. Let us celebrate. Droid, bring me the most expensive drink you can and something for my friend. And Ezra kind of goes, yeah, I think I'll go with him, referring to Chopper as he's going to go get a drink. And Hondo tells him, of course, partner, don't forget yours. So as Ezra and Chopper walk off, there's a little bit of a conversation between Ezra and Chopper, and Ezra tells Chop, I don't know what just happened. Did I just join his crew? And Chopper kind of responds like, yeah, you did, you idiot. Like droid speak, so to say. And Ezra goes, no, I don't want to leave the Ghost. I mean, not really. Maybe I would make a pretty good pirate. Inquisitors don't hunt them, do they? And Ezra hears knocking as they're walking, and he proceeds to go, what is that? So in his curiosity, he unlocks a door, and sure enough, he finds Vizago locked in the brig. So Vizago calls in his favor to Ezra immediately and tells him to help him take back over the ship. Ezra knows he has to fulfill his deal that he committed to a few episodes back, so he reluctantly agrees, but he reaffirms that the power generators belong to him. Ezra escorts Vizago to the cockpit to confront Hondo, and in the process, Ezra proposes that he takes the generators and Vizago and Hondo split as Morgan's coin. Vizago agrees, but not before taking the droid controller back from Ezra without Ezra noticing and activating them to attack Ezra and Hondo. So this leads to a very cool but also very brief fight where Ezra is now going to be fighting against these droids that are now back in the hands of Vizago. So Ezra proceeds to disable all the droids while protecting Hondo, and he confronts Vizago, and while he's doing this, Hondo also escapes and ends up stealing the Phantom in the process. So Vizago, who is now upset, he's lost his droids that Ezra just demolished. Hondo is gone. He has no way of getting back at Hondo. He puts Ezra and Chopper on an escape pod and launches them back to Gurel's surface, just like, this kid, I knew it, kids were annoying. I have no more use for this guy. Right. I totally wasted the favor that I had to call in here and now just to get out of my own prison, just to get my ship back. So he's just all sorts of annoyed. He's like, I'm done with this guy. So as the escape pod is launching back to Gurel, Ezra is talking to Chopper, and Ezra isn't sure how he's going to explain what happened to the team, but Chopper proceeds to tell him that he already knows where Hondo is going to be, which doesn't really make any sense to Ezra or me as I'm watching the episode, but immediately get an answer. Because once they get back to the surface, they show Ezra and Chopper approaching the Ghost, and sure enough, for whatever reason, you hear Hondo talking to the rest of the crew. Yeah. And he's basically telling them this elaborate story, of which more than half of it is not true. So that dialogue goes a bit like this. Hondo says, well, wait, I'm not done. Then he let Vizago out. The villain was upon us, I'm telling you. But young Ezra, he stood tall in front of me and withstood a massive attack. And then Ezra enters the room and he goes, my friend, I was just talking about you. How you and I rescued the generators from the evil Vizago. And Ezra goes, yeah, that's not true. You stole the generators and my ship. And Hondo's like, oh, what an accusation. You wound me. And Ezra goes, Chopper had the Phantom on autopilot. So that's how Hondo ended up back with the Ghost crew. Right. And Hondo responds, well, that's another version of the story, I suppose. I'll tell you what, you can keep my generators. They are a gift to you. Goodbye. So as Hondo's exiting the Ghost, Ezra kind of follows him, and he tells him, just so you know, at one time, I might have joined your crew. And this is a reference to when Ezra was on his own. Like, he was kind of a little bit of a pirate, little scavenger of his own, just to get by. And Hondo responds, you might? Ezra, you are truly a Jedi. And Hera interrupts and says, contact Commander Sato. Tell him Ezra Bridger found his generators. So I thought that was a really cool moment, because Hera, who typically would have been upset, that Ezra yet again for the third time did not do what he was told, actually found the generators by answering a distress call. So yeah, did he not do what he was supposed to do? No, but did he do it in the best interest of helping people even though they were pirates? Right. Yes. And I think Hera, like I've mentioned before, she's recognizing that Ezra is growing up, taking on a much bigger role, not only for the team, but for his character, for his path to being a Jedi. And I think that that's why Hera just completely excuses his actions, because he does deliver the power generators no matter the path that led to them. Right. So Hera takes off back into the ghost, but Kanan approaches Ezra to have a little bit more of a conversation with him. And Kanan goes, "So you went for a little spin, huh?" And Ezra goes, "I was just trying to figure things out." And Kanan asked him, "And did you?" And Ezra goes, "I used to be like Hondo, out for myself and alone, but that's not who I am anymore." And Kanan tells him, "You're on a different path now." And Ezra responds, "And I have you guys." And that's how the episode ends.
So it really solidifies once again that family dynamic that is a constant. It's a constant in the show. It started off. We all have issues with our family from time to time, especially when you were younger and you were living with your parents and whatnot. And the whole like, "Oh, I can't wait to get out of here," or like, "This place sucks," or that kind of like teenage angst that I'm going through right now with my teenager. But I can relate, because at the beginning he was kind of burnt out and disenchanted with the whole being a part of this team, being part of this family. And at the end, it's the final words, Ezra says it, and I have you guys, which means you all are my family. That was my old life. It's time I start embracing what I truly am and what's really in my heart. That's kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know I might be beating a dead horse on this, but I know this is Ezra's episode with Hondo. But again, I want to emphasize Kanan's, emotional attachment to Ezra. And it's just like, I love Rebels and I love Kanan so much because he truly is like, he follows his own path. If Kanan, if the Jedi Council was still around, Kanan wouldn't be allowed to do all these things and have these attachments with Ezra, with Hera, the whole team, right, for all intents and purposes. And it shows that like there's more than one way to do things right, as far as when it comes to walking the path of the Jedi. And just the fact that Kanan takes on this fatherly role for everybody on his crew is emotional attachment. And I just love how this show was written from a different point of view, a Jedi forging his own path, just to showcase like maybe the Jedi Council didn't have everything right.
Right. It's more like the Jedi Order, the Jedi philosophy works more as a philosophy or a theory or a belief system rather than a by the book religion. That because in most cases religion can't be questioned, because when it does, bad things happen. So I really do like this. I really do like the way that they framed Kanan and his belief system, where he's grounded in the original Jedi philosophy, but he's putting his own spin on it. And that's kind of the whole point of this, which is really cool. Another reason why this is a terrific show and very well written. Even on these little, I'm not going to call them, like I said, filler episodes, but this one, I'm going to call this one like a side mission. This was a side mission.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that we got Hondo back and he's like totally like, I don't want to call him Grandpa Hondo or Crazy Man Hondo. He just has like a totally different persona in Rebels, and this isn't the only time we're going to see him, guys. He's going to be here for several episodes to come, so enjoy the ride with him as well. Another great character that has been brought back to Rebels from the Clone Wars that we get to enjoy for a good amount of time.
Okay, so if that's the end of this episode, then I guess let's wrap up our own episode. And I want to thank everyone once again for joining us. Good morning, Lothal, the unofficial Star Wars Rebels podcast. And just want to put it out there once again, you can find us online at radiolothal.com. That'll link you to any older episodes that you might want to find. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on everything. Send us a shout out, send us a comment. So next episode, we'll be talking about season 2, episode 7. It's called Wings of the Master. So Wings of the Master. Also intriguing, don't know what that's about, and I like not knowing what that's about. So I guess if nothing else, then this has been your host, Pete Salas, along with
Rolando Zamora,
saying, may the Force be with you always. Goodbye from Lothal.